Hello and welcome to Testimony Time. Now today we're going to be hearing about the wonderful story of Fiona Lynch, who's written this book called From Darkness to Light, and that is what her testimony is about. So I want to welcome you, Fiona, to the programme.
Thanks.
Now this book is just amazing. I've been flicking through it as we've been sitting here, and your story is phenomenal. We're going to hear about it in a second, but it's just amazing how God has taken everything that you've been through and used it for his glory. So let's start with your childhood in Cambridge. What was that like?
My childhood was very difficult and quite intense because my parents came over here in the 1960s. They were invited over to work, to build up the NHS and to work on for my dad to work on British transport. And at the time they came, there was hardly any black people around. So it was quite intense for us because my mum was very protective, so she kept us inside and we only mixed with anyone, from our culture. And so for me it was quite lonely as well, and also being a twin and being the youngest twin, my character was quite suppressed. So it was quite difficult for me and very, very lonely.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And how important was friendship to you? Because we're going to get on to your friend Beverly, but how important was friendship, and how important is friendship in general, and having the right friends?
Well, friendship is very important because I believe that God has designed us to have friendship. He doesn't want us to be alone. But I mean, for me now, friendship is very, very important. In my childhood years, I didn't really have any close friends apart from my twin sister and my sisters. Because like I said, my mum and dad kept us quite, closed inside. And it wasn't till in my late teenage years when I started exploring, the wider circle of, or the community, that I realised that there's some quite dangerous people out there. So I've learnt to grow, to find out what is a good friendship and what isn't.
Yeah. So you talk in your book about Beverly. Now you grew up with Beverly and she moved to London.
Yeah.
She got into a bad relationship and came back. Was it at that point that she met you or was it, how did that come about? How did she come back into your life?
Right, you mean when I was on the first instant when we came to London? Yeah, well, at that time, because like I said, we were the minority, a lot of the black people in Cambridge, we knew. So I kind of knew her through my parents, because my parents are friends with her parents. So that's how I knew her, and she started, popping around the house and, befriending me. So, yeah.
And when she first told you about going down to London, what did she say that she was going for, and why did she ask you to come?
Right, she said she was going to, she wanted to come back to Cambridge because she was going to leave her boyfriend. So she said, would I like to come along, for the journey and everything and help her pack? So for me, that was a big thing, being 16 and never been to London before, I really want to go. And, I begged my mum to let me go and she let me go. So.
Right, so when you came down to London, you ended up at this house party, I believe, or you ended up in a house after a party. What happened next?
Well, what happened was I'd gone to this house party, but because she brought me back safely, my mum allowed me to go again with her. So I'm just going to rewind a bit. I had been with her to the party, and then she took me to this house. And at this house, there was a guy that she introduced me to, whose house it was, and a few of his friends, and he had this big dog and everything, and then suddenly everybody had left, and Beverly said she was going to the shops, and this guy saw her and her boyfriend out, and she came with my bag. So
what was going through your head at the time?
I'm thinking, where is she? Why is she leaving me on my own? And but because of my character, and I was quite shy, I didn't know how to, call out to her to, run back down the stairs to the front door, and tell her to come back.
Yeah. So. And it's funny because we laugh about it, but it's not a funny situation at all, because this is a situation that many girls, 16-year-old girls, find themselves in. So you're in a room by yourself with this person, and what happened?
Beverly didn't come back, and I'm sitting there with this stranger who I've only met about an hour, and he's wanting to get me undressed. And I'm telling him, no, I'm not getting undressed. And, you know, the Jamaican way, he's like kissed his teeth, and he got undressed and got on the bed. And I'm thinking, great, I'm now left in this really bad situation. So I'm looking at the clock, and the clock's ticking, and thinking, when is Beverly going to come back for me? But she didn't come back, and the guy's fallen asleep, and I'm thinking, thank God, everything's fine. So I just lay down on the bed, you know, with my clothes on still and everything, and till the morning came, and he had his way with me. So.
That's great. And did she come back in the morning? What happened after that? Did you then go?
She came back in the late hours of the morning, I'd say about 11 o'clock. And she was all happy, and I said to her, why did you leave me? And she just brushed, you know, my feelings aside, and that was it.
How did you handle that? Because you're a 16-year-old girl who's gone with her friend who supposedly is trustworthy to a city that you're not very familiar with. You've ended up at this house and he has raped you. How did you deal with that at such a young age?
I kept quiet. I did feel to begin with that I'd do something wrong, you know, to make Beverly leave me there in the first place and everything. But I kept quiet because of my mum. I didn't want to say that this had happened because she trusted, you know, Beverly, and she trusted me to go. So I suppose part of me did feel that, you know, I might, you know, get in trouble for it.
So when you went back to Cambridge, you met the father of your first child.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
I was working, came home one day and he was sitting there, very good looking, you know, very charming and everything, and that's how I met him. So yeah.
And how did you get together, and what attracted you to him? I know you said that he was good looking, but were there any kind of inklings of the person that he was? Did he charm you?
Well, he appeared different to a lot of the men in our culture. He was in the army, he was sensible and dressed well, and we had similarities. You know, we had the same kind of taste in going out and food and things like that, so yeah.
And that ended in disappointment again,
yes,
didn't
it did.
What happened with that?
Well, Beverly, along with some other friends, another friend called Sandra, who I'd met, these people were actually a bit older than me, so that they were able to manipulate me because of my characters when I didn't know how to stand up for myself. That they started telling him things about me and drawing him away, and Sandra especially, it seemed like she was actually having an affair with him behind my back, and it was a very bad situation to be in. It seems like I was having a threesome relationship. I know I can laugh about it now because God's obviously delivered me from it, but it wasn't funny at the time. And he ended up going back to Germany because he was still in the army. He left the army after coming back from Germany. Then he went back to Germany to be with somebody else. So that they just destroyed everything.
How did you handle such disappointments, and how did you handle manipulation looking back? Because when you think about the first person who raped you, you don't seem in your book to show so much remorse towards him. And I'm not saying that you weren't angry with him, but obviously you kept quiet about it. Maybe some other people would have screamed from the rooftops about what he had done, try and get him in prison.
The thing is, I didn't actually blame him, and to be honest with you, I haven't actually thought about him to this, to just mention about how did I actually feel about him. I haven't thought about him in that way. I think the person that I actually aimed my emotions at was actually Beverly for, leaving there, because she was actually responsible for the whole thing to happen, because maybe he thought that I wanted to stay there because I don't know what she told him at the point of going to the front door to see them out and take my bag.
Yeah.
So
it's just, different ways of handling it. Now, throughout your journey, I guess God's taken you on you could call it a spiritual journey, because throughout a lot of the things that you go through in your book, you have a lot of dreams and visions, and it's almost like God is reaching out to you before you even knew him. Yes. Tell us about some of the visions or dreams that you had growing up.
Wow, I've had a lot of dreams and visions. There was a point in my life where I was seeing things every day that was unfolding, and they weren't very good things because of the situation I was in, because by the time I'd gone into my second violent relationship, the path I was on was a path of destruction, and that was what I was seeing in all these dreams and visions. But the vision that stands out to me, the most, in my testimony was the day that I actually sat and prayed and asked the Lord to help me. Finally, after years of abuse, and I said to him, please help me, Lord. When I had the vision of the tunnel with the light at the end of it, I knew then that God was actually going to bring me out of this situation. So.
What do you think, you just mentioned 2 relationships of abuse. What do you think led you into those relationships in the first place?
I was easily manipulated, and I think I was looking for something that actually, in both of these abusive men, that actually wasn't there. Because like the first abusive relationship I was in, my partner was actually a bit older than me, and he was quite protective. So I saw his abuse, I know it might sound strange, has a kind of love that, he was possessive and I belonged to him, and, so I think part of me wanted that, but also he was able to manipulate me because of my character. And then a second time round, because he was saving me from the first abusive relationship, I looked to him again and thought that, when I got the same response of abuse, that meant that he loves me because he wanted to keep me in. So as strange as it may seem, I developed the victim mentality. So.
Why do you think a lot of women, because I think a lot of women go through that, but why do you think that is? Because it tend to be, stereotypically, we tend to be drawn to the bad guys.
Yes. It's a lot of it is low self-esteem, because so for me, it was like I had somebody, like I said, that seemed like they were caring about me and protecting me, but at the same time, I couldn't understand why they were hurting me. So, and I think a lot of women do actually go to, get drawn to those relationships because I think a part of them believe that if they could change this person, that it's an achievement in itself. But we can never change that person because we can't change people because everybody's at different places in their lives.
Definitely. You also talk in your book about getting into Rastafarianism. Now, how did that come about?
Wow. Well, that came about when I left my second violent partner because the beatings were absolutely horrendous. And I knew that I had to get on. Like I said, I had that prayer, had that vision after I prayed. And I managed to leave him and move house with my 6 children. And I was just sitting on my bed that summer and had the vision of a treasure chest with a word scripture above it. And I knew then I had to look into the scriptures because I thought there's something hidden, the hidden key to this treasure chest. And I believe that I'm the only person that was showing this and would know what this key is. And then shortly after that, I had a dream of this Rasta guy who spoke French. He was a journalist, and he was looking for me because I had, I was in a dream, I was the only person that had a certain, some information which nobody else had. So in a dream, he spoke French, and he also had this camera, this like, old-fashioned camera around his neck. The following year, I met him.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know.
First of all, that just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I know, it's just absolutely amazing. Yeah. I actually met him. And the weekend that I met him, I was reading in a magazine that love can even come on the street corners. And I actually met him that weekend. It was Notting Hill Carnival, and I met him on the street corner. But something divine seemed like it took place because it's like a connection instantly. And we spoke, about different spiritual things. But the thing that struck me that night was, he said to me, "Do you speak French?" And I was messed about saying, "Yeah, parlez-vous français" and everything. But I didn't remember that until I realised later on that he was in my dream when I met him the second time round. And I saw the camera, the old-fashioned camera in his room. And he said he was here to study journalism. He was from Jamaica. He said he was here to study journalism. And I looked at him, even how his dreadlocks were and everything. I thought, I dreamt you. I dreamt you, last year. And from that moment, I related that to the vision that I had of the treasure chest and the word scriptures, because also he started introducing me to scriptures. But the thing with the Rasta guy, he didn't believe in Jesus. So it just focused on the Old Testament, and that's all I focused on was the Old Testament. Until one day the Lord said to me to leave him. I knew it was the Lord now speaking to me, but because he was directing my steps. And I just thought, I've got to leave him. But I was so besotted with him and in love with him because he was the first person that came into my life that actually had love in his heart. Even though there was a form of abuse still there, manipulation. But he showed me a different kind of love because he came, he decorated, he cooked for me, he did the garden, he did things that my other abusive partners didn't do. So that was how I started to get into Rastafarianism and started, dreading up my hair and, playing the part and everything. But something wasn't sitting with me. I had this heavy spirit and this darkness and this fear that just kept overcoming, was just overshadowing me all the time. It was awful. So that's how I first, how I got into it.
So at what point did you think, okay, I need to get out from this? I know you said the Lord told you to leave him, but then did you leave Rastafarianism or did you leave him?
Yeah, sorry, I continued a bit, more into it, but I was still seeking. And because when I left him, it was like I had a breakdown. It's like everything was just there in my mind. All the abuse, everything I'd been through, it was like a computer, like my mind had crashed. And I remember it was a whole week that I went through this turmoil where my mind was just doing whatever it wanted. And I remember thinking, I need to just hold on to the Bible and read Psalms for the whole week. I was reading Psalms and Proverbs and I was just praying, at that time, because I was into the Rastafarianism, I was obviously praying to this dark spirit, but, the Lord amongst that was hearing my cry. And I got through that week and I thought, one more thing in my life that happens to me, that's it, my mind's finished with. So after that, the Lord led me to go through the Old Testament from the beginning to the end of the Old Testament. So I was going through it and I was writing out my notes about the tabernacle and the blood of the unblemished animal at the altar and everything. And I remember drawing my pictures and everything. And then I had a dream and I saw a group of white people and I heard a voice saying, now for the next lesson in life. And in a dream also was like needle and thread. So I knew it was about mending, sewing together. And it's relevant that the fact that I dreamt a group of white people because I was still into my culture, because I'd lost I didn't know who I was because of my cultural differences. And I also saw, white people a bit like the enemy. It was like, because there was a bit of racism going on, as you could see in my book. Me and my children suffered, a bit in that way. And through this dream, it's just amazing because my neighbour, white lady, she came to me and said, I'm doing Bible studies, would you like to join me at my house? I thought, well, why not? Because I related it in a way to the next lessons in life. And at the same time, my uncle died. And my cousin, his daughter, phoned up one day and said, there's a Bible of yours at his house. So I said, my Bible? Because I couldn't work out how he would have a Bible of mine at his house. And when she brought it to me, it was, just the New Testament, and it had my name in it from when I was at school. And that's when I started reading the New Testament, and I started feeling alive.
Wow.
It's really amazing. I started feeling alive when I was going to this Bible study. And but then I thought, how am I going to tell that Haile Selassie is God? Because I still, very much believe in that. And then, but a strange thing happened. I started to feel strangled. And I thought, oh, the Spirit of Jesus is actually strangling me. I can't tangle the two. And it was awful because I think, oh gosh, I'm staying away from these people. So I stayed away, and the lady's daughter came round one day and she said, you're just hiding yourself away because you don't go outside, you don't do nothing. I was only just going shopping because the spirit I was worshipping made me feel really fearful. And it was horrible, but I was scared of doing anything wrong because obviously, I was recognising that if you did anything wrong, then you'd be in serious trouble. I thought, how am I going to be able to have the blood put on the altar and everything, and to rid me of all my sins and everything, even though I wasn't recognising what sins I really had at that point. And then what happened was, after this the daughter came round, she encouraged me to go back to the Bible studies. I thought, okay, I'll try it again. So I went back to the Bible studies, and I was reading the New Testament again, and I remember reading about in the beginning was the Word, and the Word became flesh. And it clicked into place who Jesus was, that he was in the beginning, and that, God came through Jesus Christ, that he was God. And I thought, okay. And I remember the next day, it was just an amazing experience that I had. I can't remember clearly if I was coming from the shops or my sisters, actually. And the Spirit of Jesus just fell upon me. It was like his Spirit just filled the whole universe. It was just an amazing experience. And I knew in my spirit then that Jesus was the Christ.
Wow.
And I thought, I want to get baptised. And I thought, in fact, I want to have an exorcism, because the spirit that I've been worshipping, I could now see was like a particle in the air, like the prince of the air, who's working in those who are disobedient, you know. And I thought, wow, I've been allowed the prince of the air to work in me. And after that, I'll never forget it, my sister was around cooking dinner and everything, because she knew that I was going through a bit of a bad time. And I remember being upstairs, and the spirit of the Lord and this spirit I've been worshipping was just like they were crossing over. And I had the conviction of the Holy Spirit, you know, which way are you going to go? Are you going to follow me? Or are you going to keep going on the path that you're going on? And I thought, well, I want to, you know, go your way. And then a door knocked, and it was my neighbour saying, oh, have you been baptised? And I said, well, yeah, you know, years ago, because I had actually been baptised, but I didn't understand it. And she said, well, I'm getting baptised again. Do you want to be baptised? I was like, yeah, I do. But I felt embarrassed and ashamed, because I had all this pride, because I didn't want to say to her that you're right about Jesus and I'm wrong about Haile Selassie. So anyway, in the end, I thought, you know, I have to actually surrender, because I want Jesus. I've had that experience. I know that he's the way, the truth and life, and he's the God of all nations, because everything that the Lord had unfolded to me in the Old Testament came into place through the revelation of Jesus Christ. You know, everything that the Old Testament is a foreshadow of the New. It was in a physical context, now everything's in a spiritual, and my life is in a spirit. So the next time I went to Bible study, she said, would you like to give yourself to the Lord? I said, well, yeah, what do I do? And she was messing about saying, oh, you're going to be doing cartwheels. And I was like, I was scared. And so when, you know, she led me to the Lord doing a sinner's prayer, it was just amazing that everything was broken. It's like the veil had been torn in two. And I just sobbed my heart out. And it's like, I crossed over from darkness to light. And since then, there's been no turning back. The past has had no hold on me whatsoever.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And what I love about your story is how there's no shame about everything that you've been through. God is now using it to touch other people, other women who possibly are going through the same thing that you went through. What would you say to those kinds of women watching who are going through abusive relationships and are searching for God? What would you say to them?
Well, I'd say to them, as Jesus said, take up your mat and walk. Don't look back. God has a life for you hidden in Christ, and he has a life for everybody. If he can do it for me, he can do it for you. He can do it. He's done it for me, a single parent of 6 children who used to take drugs and everything to numb the pain. He will do it for you. He can do anything if you just trust in him.
That's amazing. Amen to that. Yeah. So what are you doing now? I know that you're a pastor of a church. Are you counselling other women?
Yes, we do pastoral care. We counsel quite a few people, single parents. We do sort of like some kind of outreach, like have people come, guest speakers come to do the outreach, but I do a lot of counselling. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of hurt women out there, and hurt men as well. You know, because there's single parent men out there as well that have had a lot of damage done to them by women.
Definitely. It's funny that we often laugh about that, but it's not funny.
No, it's not funny. It's not funny.
So some women are physically abusive, and it's not a joke, I guess.
No, it's not a joke.
Yeah. But you wrote your book, From Darkness to Light. Did you ever think you would write a book, and what's next in terms of your writing?
I didn't think I'd write a book, but I always had I always had a desire to write. But this book, From Darkness to Light, came through a vision as well. I was saying to the Lord, what do you want me to do next? It was the summer holidays. The kids were small at the time. And I thought, well, I'm not going anywhere fast. And I saw the cover and everything and a vision.
Just hold that up so I can
From
see.
Darkness to Light with my name on it.
Wow.
And I thought, oh, wow, you want me to write a book? And I thought, well, I've obviously never written a book before or anything. And that day, my neighbour actually provided me with a computer. So I thought, I've just had this vision from the Lord. And I don't know how I'm going to write this book. She goes, oh, I've got a computer you can borrow. In fact, she gave it to me in the end. And as I was typing, it's like the format for my whole story came out on paper. And in 6 weeks, I had a draft. And, and I've written, a couple of other books since. And I'm writing the next one from Rags to Riches.
That's great. So. Well, Fiona, it's been an absolute pleasure having you in the studio, and what I get from your story is just that there's nothing too difficult for God, and the fact that God can take us from that miry clay and place us on the solid foundation that he is. And I just want to say keep going on. Like, we're so blessed to have you in the studio. And I just want to thank everyone at home for watching. God bless you. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.